Good afternoon, communication students. I'm going to be talking today about something near and dear to my heart, as well as everybody else's in the country, gun control. Here's a topic that you'll find yourself on one side or the other. There really are no middle ground here. The number of people that are undecided are minuscule in comparison to any other debate topic that's out there today. Now, who am I? I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not a congressman, obviously. I'm not any other member of our political branch. I'm just a United States citizen. And because I am a United States citizen, I'm endowed with certain rights from the Constitution. Now, there are two sides of this topic. There's the pro-gun side, there's the pro-gun control side. The pro-gun side advocates mostly for the Second Amendment, which is the right to keep and bear arms, which is a law that allows private citizens such as myself to own firearms and use them at our discretion. This side will use statistics. They point to how lighter gun control, meaning basically right to carry laws, have dropped crime rates in certain areas. And I'll get to some of those statistics in a few minutes. The other side of the area, the gun control advocates, they point to how they believe a tougher gun control law will keep our families and our schools safe. They think that the argument that some options of what you can purchase for a firearm out there it's useless. It has no meaning, has no purpose, and really shouldn't belong. Now you look at both sides. The tougher gun control side, should they win, this side will push for tougher gun control laws. They will push for the more stricter background checks. Their goal here really is to reduce the amount of shootings that are happening in our schools. And if you watch the news like I do, you see that it's happening more and more frequently right now. They point to the fact that most of these shootings are done with guns that were purchased legally by law-abiding citizens such as myself or anybody else out there. So they feel that if they can put tougher gun control regulation in place, this would prevent that from happening. The pro-gun side uses statistics on their end, and they point to how they poll the prison population, people that are in there for violent crimes, and they ask them, I go, are they more likely to commit a crime in a house where they know that the owner of that home has a gun? And 80% of them said no. In fact, they even went further to say that the majority of people that they know have either been shot at or have been shot, when they break into guns that own for people that own guns, break into homes with people that own guns. They look at, the debate today really isn't a debate, it's an argument. Whenever pro-gun or anti-gun people get up and start talking, it quickly turns to screaming and name-calling, and this is in Congress where we're supposed to have logical, mature debates. Now, according to James Agrestic and Reed Smith via JustTheFacts.com, there is so much emotion on both sides of this argument that there's neither one can sit at a table and discuss this even remotely civilized yet. For the pro-gun side, statistics point to how a lighter stance on gun control can in fact reduce crime rate in a certain area. Take, for example, according to JustTheFacts.com, Florida recently put a right to carry law in place. And once they did that, they found that over that next year, the murder rate dropped by 36%. Now, of course, that's probably not just because of that, but they're using that statistic and they're putting it in connection with that. Looking at some more statistics from the pro-gun control side, they see that, according to an article, Gun Control Pros and Cons, 3 points on both sides of the debate by Karen Ritter. She said that all gun-related massacres, such as Columbine and Sandy Hook, were committed with guns that were purchased legally by law-abiding citizens. So you look at that end of the statistic, and there's definitely argumentative sides to this one conversation. The major argument, really, from the pro-gun lobby is the Constitution. This was laid down by our founding fathers. The Second Amendment, states that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the law of the land. This is what, as a United States citizen, I am allowed, essentially. And the fact that the government has attempted to regulate this law is literally against the law. That's something that's that cannot be done. Of course, amendments can be made, but it takes an act of Congress. The major argument for the pro-gun control lobby is that tougher gun regulations are needed in order to protect our families and our schools. From what it seems to be an increase in gun violence. The feeling that is that if a more thorough background check and for citizens purchasing firearms, the government can better protect its citizens from those individuals that should not have a weapon. The conflict is there are truly no winners. Either side has valuable points, and both sides somebody loses something. So but this is an argument. So let's see what will happen if people win and lose. The pro-gun lobby wins. There's a reducing crime. Going off of what statistics have shown, there's a reducing crime, and similar to what Florida saw once their right to carry law went into place, something I already touched on. From the negative side of this, given the fact that each school massacre that has taken place since Columbine in the 90s has been committed with firearms purchased legally, its odds are it's not going to slow that down at all. There's still the likelihood that these shootings will continue. So the pro-gun control lobby, let's say that they win. Law-abiding gun owners, like myself and everyone listening, will see their ability to purchase firearms made a little bit more difficult. And given the statistics on how tougher gun control actually can raise crime rates, for example, what happened in Chicago when they saw the ban on handguns, their crime rate actually rose by 24%, according to also justifax.com. Now, when the negative side here is that even if this side will likely reduce the chances of school shootings, although that's not known if that'll be a guarantee, the crime rate across the country will rise. So in essence, we reduce the chances of shootings happening in our school, but we also increase the chances of home invasions and violent crime. After all, criminals are not going to go out and purchase a gun at the local gun shop. They're going to get it illegally. So let's talk about a solution. Let me start by saying first that I'm pro-gun, if you couldn't figure that one out through my tone and my conversation. I've actually used my handgun to ward off an individual attempting to break into my home when I was in my mid to early 20s. So for me, this is something that I feel if I didn't have that, something would have happened. So for me, owning a gun is a given right laid down by our forefathers. On the other hand, I'm a father of two young children, and their safety is my priority. It's my number one focus in life, and particularly when they're at school. School's a place of learning. It's a place where they should not be afraid to go. For me, when I heard about what happened at Sandy Hook, I couldn't imagine that. A kid walking into a elementary school and opening fire on children that really should never be exposed to that. It boggles the mind. I do believe that a solution to this dilemma, could be the following. First, tougher gun control is not a solution. That will be good for the country, particularly in areas that have potential for higher crime rates. Second, there are already millions of guns in possession of law-abiding citizens. Roughly one gun for every United States citizen at this point in time. So if our plans to completely prevent the school shootings from happening, you'd have to go door to door and get those guns, right? But when you think about that, let me throw a quote out. And pro-gun lobbyists always go to this whenever anything is said about going door to door to get guns. So this is a quote from a convention in Europe in the mid-30s, and allow me to read this for you. This year will go down in history for the first time a civilized nation has full gun registration. Our streets will be safer, our police will be more efficient, and the world will follow our lead into the future. Who said that? Adolf Hitler, in 1935. This was a speech he gave to a convention, after he put the toughest gun control regulations in the world in place in Germany, which essentially removed all the guns from the Jews shortly before we know what happened there. So this is obviously the extreme. This is a very extreme thing, and this is what usually creates the argument whenever it's said that the pro-gun control people are obviously insulted that they're put in the same page with Hitler, but the argument's there, so let's just go with that one. So let's see. About 60% of our nation's household own guns right now, at least one. Myself, I own dozens. So in order to prevent this from shooting, I mean, that's not a viable option. Now, looking on the other half of it, I believe firmly that well-trained safety guards, at least 2 of them in every school, would be a very good deterrent. They're and open up every state to the right to carry laws. That would reduce crime overall. Guards at schools would help protect our children. You know, Plus, I'm all for tougher background checks for purchasing firearms. It doesn't bother me a bit. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I have nothing to hide. Which most of the people do too. It just and I'll get to that in 1 second. I'm willing to sign off on this, although I know it will never make anyone happy. In conclusion, I feel that gun control is a hot-button topic at the current moment and is more of an argument starter than an actual discussion maker. With all the media coverage on school shootings that seem to be occurring more frequently, along with the increased crime in certain areas, I believe this country, something needs to be done on the topic of gun control. And my own opinion on this topic is there would never be a compromise made on this. The reason I feel this is, those gun control advocates, they're the type of people that once you give them an inch, they want a mile. They don't really believe in compromise. They don't understand compromise. They look at the actual statistics that are shown on how gun ownership has reduced crime in certain areas, and they don't see it. They don't believe it. They feel that an armed guards at schools will be a distraction to proper learning, according to some of the most recent debates. And they can't listen to people that point out that it's not going to hinder criminals from gaining access to firearms, since they can't purchase them legally anyway. Once you have a felony on your record, you can never own a gun. You can't even own it. So if you already own it, you get a felony, they have to take the gun. It's the law. So if they're going to put themselves in a place where they're going to be able to get a gun anyway. The other half of the equation is that politicians are not stupid. They can see both sides of the argument. They understand that criminals will still get guns, and they're not going to put themselves into a place where their constituents will be angered by any decision they make. The pro-gun lobby puts so much money into politicians, and every politician, there's never going to be a concise decision made. The gun control, when you look at the two sides, gun control puts in, pro-gun control puts in roughly 10% of what the pro-gun lobby puts into the politicians' re-election campaign. So there's really never going to be any groundbreaking gun control regulation put in place. And I don't think leaner gun controls will ever be put in place either. It's going to be a debate that's probably going to be raging well into my 90s, should I live that long. What I really would like to say, I've always been pro-gun. Now that I have 2 young children, I watch the news on schools. There's at least a shooting once a month, it seems, or more. And I feel this issue needs to be discussed maturely. I would hope our politicians can sit down and have a mature discussion, but like we've seen, it doesn't really happen very often. And a reasonable solution needs to be made, developed in order to keep my kids safe in school, as well as give me the rights to carry a firearm like I've had for most of my adult life. I would like to thank everybody for listening, and I hope everyone had a Thanksgiving with some power. Thank you very much.